It's 5 o'clock, and we will call the Finance Committee meeting to order. I will note that present this evening is Alderman Andy Nicholson, Tom Sladek, and myself, Guy Zima, and Tom DeWayne is excused. He's has problems with a family. His sister is being operated on, and he will probably not be joining us here tonight. So he is excused. That, could we have the motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderman Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Sladek to approve the agenda. All those in favor, please say
Aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Item number 3 is the approval of the minutes of the
Move
Finance
approval.
Committee
Second.
of July 15th. Been moved by Mr. Sladek, seconded by Mr. Nicholson to approve. Any amendments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item number 4 is a request by myself on behalf of Sister Pauline Quinn, who is here with us tonight, to declare the property at 1230 10th Avenue, the Hermitage, as tax exempt. And I think that part of it, our assessor is here today, and he informs me that there's no problem with it being declared tax exempt. But the problem we have before us here today is that Sister Pauline has been living in her house since the end of last year. She owned a house in Marinette, and she sold it for exactly the same amount of money that she bought her house for here in Green Bay. And the people were kind enough to let her move in and live there until her house sold in Marinette. Well, at the time she moved in, she thought that her property would be tax exempt because of her lifelong charitable work that she's done, which is substantial. I first got to meet Sister Pauline just a few weeks ago, and let me tell you, I went for a short visit, and it turned into about a 4-hour visit in which I learned a lot, and I would like to learn more about all of her works really around the world, as well as in Green Bay and Wisconsin, and just about everywhere, really. And saving the lives of people who were in very, very dire circumstances, people that were limbless, people that had been severely burned where their limbs were burned off of their bodies, people who had bullets lodged into their spines and couldn't get operated on. It goes on and on and on and on and on. Her whole life, I believe there's been a film actually made about her life, at least it's included in the film, and she's a woman of just total dedication. And she has moved to Green Bay in the last few months, well, since the beginning of the year, because she needed to be closer to her doctors. She was doing all of her charitable work really out of Marinette, and believe me, she's traveled the whole world. I know that she has an invitation, a standing invitation right now to go to Argentina, but Buenos Aires, Argentina, and she will be living in the prison there for about a month and training people on her therapy that she uses with prisoners, and to help people with severe handicaps. She shows people how to train animals, how to help them help themselves. And she's here with us tonight, and I'm giving this introduction to her. She can certainly speak for herself. And she's a sweetheart of sweethearts, but she's a very determined woman, and she's accomplished a lot. And she moved in thinking that her house would be tax exempt. But because her house didn't sell as quickly as she thought in Marinette, she didn't actually take possession of the house, although she lived in it for all of this year, up to now. She lived in it for all this time, but she didn't take possession or could ask for it to be made tax exempt until now. And now the books have been closed on our tax rolls. As the councilmen know, that after the Board of Review completes its work, each and every year they close the books, and then any appeals go to the following year. But I'm here to ask the council to hear from Sister Pauline and to assume any tax liabilities for this particular year we're in, because she lives strictly on her Social Security, and even part of that money goes to the good works that she does. She really spends nothing on herself except to feed herself and have a place with a roof over her head, and to take care of her dogs that do her good work for her. But my request to the committee here is that we assume any taxes that will be accruing this year. We don't know what it'll be. I believe the property is assessed at, Russ, can you help me, it was assessed at about $54,000 or so?
Right, last year's taxes were about $1,215.
So it'll probably be similar to that, somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,200. And after you hear from Sister Pauline, I would request that you make a recommendation to the council that we assume whatever that tax liability is and just write it off of our contingency fund, so that she can continue all of her good work without the worries of how she's going to pay for that property tax. And so with that ado, Sister Pauline, would you like to address the committee?
Yes, Stan Banks.
This is her dog Pax, which in Latin stands for peace.
And my dog Pax, I started a prison dog program in Oshkosh Correctional, and he was kicked out because he was too rambunctious, but he's much better now. But, you know, as I sit here and listen to you, Mr. Zimmer, I find myself really have a hard time asking things for myself. I'm not used to that, and I've never been to a meeting like this before, but I appreciate the opportunity. I hope that, you know, with these surgeries, I had back-to-back surgeries and this extensive rehabilitation. It's going to be difficult for me to get the money, but as I said, it's really hard for me to ask for myself. But,
Well, if you'd had your deed before, say, like March or even April, before the rolls were closed,
yeah.
you wouldn't have to be here today. It would be tax exempt. But because it wasn't, I'm here to ask the committee in your behalf to assume those taxes for next year, so you can take this off of your mind and continue with your
It
good
would
work.
be helpful. I know that I contacted the city for, ever since I've been trying to get to buy the house, so they know I've been in that house since the beginning of the year. And the person that bought the St. Catherine's Hermitage in Marinette was a disabled vet, and it took longer because I guess he had to go through a government loan. So that's the only reason why it wasn't bought in the beginning of the year, because they allowed me to have this house, and let me live in the house until I got the money to pay for it, and that was in the end of last year.
There's a little packet that I gave you that Sister prepared, and if you turn to the second page, there's a letter from Bishop David Ricken, and it's to Sister Pauline Quinn, who's a religious sister who has taken vows under Bishop Raul Vera of Saltillo, Mexico, who lives and works here in the Diocese of Green Bay under my direction. She is one of the most accomplished pastoral ministers I've ever met, especially in her ministry to the forgotten and rejected. For many years, she has made a great contribution to those in prison through her Bridges and Pathways of Courage ministry. Through her dog program, she has been able to provide much help to prisoners. In turn, their skills learned in training dogs help many other people who need the assistance of a dog as a helpful companion. Sister Pauline resides at the Diocese of Green Bay as a missionary hermit and lives in a small religious house called St. Catherine's Hermitage here in Green Bay, in the city of Green Bay. We are privileged to have her in the Diocese of Green Bay and know that you will be enriched by her presence and ministry as well. Sincerely yours in Christ, David Rickett. And also in the packet, you can see the warranty deed and the Marinette parcel is a copy of a parcel that she was tax exempt there. You see the assessment is zero, improvement zero, total investment value zero. And I guess, Russ, is it that way for next year now?
It'll be exempt for next year, but because she didn't own the property as of the first of the year, the statutes don't allow us to make an exemption for a partial year. It's how it exists as of the first, and as of the first, it was still owned by a private party.
Okay, well, that's the situation. She's lived there since the end of December, but the transaction didn't take place until mid-year here, and I guess I'm asking the city council to bear the expense of about $1,200. If we could have a motion that would say that we would assume the taxes not to exceed $1,250 at the end of when the tax bill comes due.
I have a question.
Sure. Mr. Sladek?
I have a question for the finance department. Exactly what transaction is being proposed here? I mean, we're not really foregoing taxes because there is going to be a tax bill issued, right?
Correct, and
So-
on our behalf, the city would have to cut a check to the county to pay the bill, and then we would, at some point, we'd have to decide what expense account to use.
Okay, do I use the right word assume, that we'd be assuming the tax bill and paying?
Correct, the city would end up paying the tax bill, like any
Okay.
property that the city would own.
All right. And so we would be paying the taxes, not only the city taxes, but the county taxes and the school district taxes.
Correct, all the
as well.
taxing jurisdictions also.
Okay. Is there a way for us to just cover the city portion of the taxes?
I don't believe so, I can certainly find out. I can call the county and find out.
That's fine. There's not a lot of money at stake here, and clearly this is, the spirit of the law is this is a tax exempt operation, so I don't have any other questions, and I'd be willing to
Can I
make the motion to have
Can I
this.
mention one more thing?
Yes.
I mean, just keep in mind that at the time of the sale, she probably would have received about 50% of the tax bill that this person, during the sale, would have had to pay their portion of the tax during any kind of.
Well, there's a problem with that, is that when she bought it, she assumed that she wouldn't have a tax bill. She told the
Right.
owner that she would accept the property and assume any tax responsibility
So
on
there
it.
was not a proration as part of the
No.
closing?
If you feel that it's worthwhile, I'd entertain a motion that we assume and pay the tax bill at 1230 10th Avenue, to an amount not to exceed $1,250.
I'd be willing to make that motion, given that this is clearly within the spirit of operating as tax exempt property.
Second.
Second, any other questions of Sister Pauline? Wait, would you just graciously tell the committee some of the things that you shared with me about your ministry?
Well, I've been working, I was in the Bosnian War and the Gulf War. I brought a number of people here. I brought some Bosnian soldiers that through our government were allowed to come to have medical care. So I brought Strechko and Dushko here, St. Mary's Hospital and St. Vincent's Hospital. I brought a boy out who's still here, Jonathan, without limbs, from Croatian orphanage. And I have a boy here from Haiti who was orphaned, and at 10 he was severely burned. And lost his limbs, and I brought him out. It took me 3 times to go to Haiti, and I had to get bribe money to get him out, but got him out. And right after the earthquake, he was severely burned. And he finished high school, and now he's in college. I'm very happy for him. But anyway, if you do approve it, I can do volunteer work to help pay the city back if you want.
Well, we'll include that in the motion here, and if we can have you maybe come and do a couple prayers. Some of the prayers haven't been as inspirational as your story is. And maybe you can come and offer a prayer at our next city council meeting, and we'll relieve the mayor of his duties for one meeting. How does that sound?
Nerve-wracking.
All right. So the motion before us is to assume the taxes on behalf of Sister Pauline Quinn at 1230 10th Avenue, and to assume and pay those taxes when the bill comes due. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay,
Thank you so kindly.
you can sit here and listen to the rest of our meeting if you like, but you're free to leave now.
Stand, please. Bye, everybody. I hope your case is very
I just tell you, she's gone. I mean, I went over just to visit her for a couple minutes and ended up staying 4 hours, and fascinated by the whole tale of her life. And I'm sure there's days and days more that you could tell me about, but some of it was the cleverness of the woman to help people who had no other chance in life except her. And she made a difference. And you see in her notebook this little baby about this big with no legs and only arms from the elbows down, elbows up. And then see a picture of him as a healthy, strong-looking boy who goes to school here and manages to take care of himself and is positive about his life and can smile and you know, I guess all people with handicaps, they do adapt and they accept their lives as they are. And you know, Sister Paulina is really a super special person in that she has gone the extra mile so many times to help people who were really almost hopeless and helpless. So I thank the committee for their consideration. And we'll continue our meeting. Item number 5 is a request by Alderman Chris Weary that all monthly Green Bay Neighborhood Leadership Council meetings have an audio recording of the proceedings for full transparency and a resource for those unable to attend. Hello, Chris.
Hello, gentlemen. I can't follow Sister Paulina up. Not even close.
Anyway, please
Sure.
address us.
Yeah, definitely. I'm asking that the audio recordings be made of the monthly meetings of the Leadership Council from all the associations. They meet once a month, all the leaders at Riverside Ballroom. City dollars have gone into the associations. Much staff time and dollars goes into the associations. The recordings can be a resource that can be kept for those who can't attend, and also importantly, it can help curb some politicking that tends to creep in that council asks not take place. And so, just asking staff to take a little digital recorder with and record the meeting and just keep it, because they're at every meeting. So,
Well, I think the whole idea behind the neighborhood associations is that they were supposed to be to help build neighborhoods, not to be involved in politics other than what they normally would do individually. And I know I've had reports that our mayor had gone there and was recruiting people verbally to run for alderman there. I think that's inappropriate. That's not what these associations were built for. And if that is going to be the purpose, and I don't want to fund them in the future. Certainly everyone has the rights of every citizen, but to use that as a vehicle for any politics, I think, is inappropriate. And so.
Certainly.
I
I
think
don't want to
a motion-
disparage the neighborhood associations. Marquette Park just held a great fun fest on Sunday. The neighborhood loved it, and it's a great way to share ideas and what's going on in the neighborhood. But when the politics starts creeping in, I think we need to find a way to guard against that. And I think this is a very easy way to record the meeting for those who can't make it, and to allow a record of what went on. And there should be no cost, really. Just staff can bring one of these recorders with them.
Do we entertain a motion that the
I got a
neighborhood
question,
social
Mr.
leader?
Chairman.
Yeah, sure.
Well, here's a scenario. Let's say you don't record it, what's going to be the repercussion to it?
Well, it's a good question.
Deliberate, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Should we take half the funding away from them? Quarter? I mean, what's the penalty?
I don't know if we have to have a penalty, but
Well,
It
what are we
seems-
going to discourage, how do
seems
we,
to me that this is a
how do we
simple-
discourage that?
this is a, well, I think, do we have a staff person at those meetings?
Well, yeah.
A couple usually.
Is it always the same people?
I don't know.
Does anybody know who?
Simple
attends those
solution
meetings?
would be to not have those meetings. If they're not recorded, I don't know if there has to be any penalty.
Mr. Slattery?
I have a question of Director Flom. I assume that it's within your department that these meetings are led and conducted?
Yes.
Is this in any way onerous to the operations of your department? Is there
No.
any reason that you would have difficulty complying with this?
We will be bringing a recorder to Thursday's meeting, so we are planning on recording them. And we're also actually working with IT. We'd like to video them and maybe broadcast them on Channel 4. Because usually the meetings have a presentation, police come and give reports on the different neighborhoods. The Parks Department has come and given a presentation on Emerald Ash Borer. So there's information that's really beneficial citywide. So our goal would be to actually have them broadcast and recorded even via video.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, given the statement of the director, I don't think there's resistance to this. It sounds like it can be pretty easily executed. So, I support going ahead and approving the request.
Okay, the motion is to approve the request
Second.
to have the proceedings recorded, and seconded by Mr. Nicholson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Item number 6, request by Personnel Committee to review finances, report, and recommendation with possible action on a program for gang task force along with the resources necessary for that program.
I'm assuming that you all got a copy of that budget from Don Fuller, or hoping anyway.
It would be on page 6A.
The, well, we had the presentation at our last meeting
Yes.
that you presented to us. And
We got a one-page summary of just the financials.
Yes. Yep.
the, I guess I know our 2 meetings ago, the previous chief felt that somehow we could handle all this within the scope of our existing force. And we had quite a discussion about it. And then when we asked them to come back with a report, you did come back with a recommendation, a request for 4 additional officers. And there were a number of officers that were at in attendance at the meeting. And I don't know that they're all here today, but it looks like there's some here today. My question was that enough? Because I felt like, well, are we really going to step down on the lawbreakers in Green Bay? I don't want to be reiterating everything I said at the previous meeting, but I think the important overview of what my feelings are is that the safety of the city is the most important imperative in our city. It makes people decide whether they want to continue to stay to live here. It's the quality of life in the neighborhoods. The safety of the neighborhoods is extremely important. And the demographics of Green Bay have changed a lot in the last 10, 15 years. There have, more people are concerned. That's the one thing I hear about, is the safety of the communities. Now, of course, there are neighborhoods that are established with 90% or more homeowners that, you know, are responsible citizens. It's the areas where we have a lot of transient turnover of people living in properties, et cetera, that problems arise. And I personally am willing to support whatever it takes to have this be a top priority and really a tangible effort to make our city safer, catch more people. The more time you put at something, the more results you get. It's as simple as that. Everybody knows that. That's true in everything, not only policing. It's where you decide you want to put your resources. It's not that we don't spend quite a bit of resources already, but I think the tide is turning against the citizenry, especially in the transient areas. So 4 people, is that divided up amongst 3 shifts then? Or they all be on one shift?
I think the design would be that they would all be in one shift, or at least some kind of overlap. And I think, you know, we're talking about in addition to our current staff.
When you're talking 4, that's to include vacation and to overlap 7 days a week,
Sure.
et cetera.
Yeah,
You
we
need
could-
4 to man one position, correct?
No, there'd be 4 positions working together, working the same shift.
When we had one full position for a full 24 hours, it's 3 people, right? And when you add in the people,
5.2.
it's 5.2?
Takes 5.2 to cover vacations and 24/7.
Okay, it's worse than I thought. 5.2, so we're adding less than 1 person per shift to solve this. Well, every little bit helps. But I don't know, if it takes 10, so that we're overlapping everything and that there's always at least 2 more people, I would feel more comfortable with that. I think we really have to step up. I want to greet Chief Lewis. It's been a while since I've seen you. I read your remarks in the paper this morning. I couldn't help but thinking that maybe some of that was coached. But I thought that you were sending out the message that we didn't need more help, because that was the previous administration. He said that. Last 2. This committee has been committed to having a safe city here. And we're not here throwing millions of dollars at something, but we want to throw adequate money into the pot to get some real results. And if 5.2 is what you need just to cover 1 round, I was thinking 4. But then I think it should be more. I'm thinking of at least 2 people round the clock, and maybe you don't have them on all shifts, maybe just 2 of the shifts. So that you could have 3 people on 2 shifts extra. I think the more manpower we put in it, the better. So that's my sense. I know the department kind of, at least the leadership of the department, went from we don't need anything to, oh, we could use 4. So I'm saying, hey, let's really address it, not just put a smaller, a little bit bigger Band-Aid on it. So I guess I'd like your feelings about, for instance, adding 10 or 12. So that
Well-
you'd have at least 2 people covering, up to 3 people on the how are shifts where most of the action is?
Certainly, this group needs to be able to work as a team. I wouldn't want to split them up amongst all the shifts. I would want them working together on some shifts that at least overlap. I think based on the study of the amount of gang-related calls that we've documented, being that less than 0.3% of the calls we actually respond to throughout a year, I'm not sure what 10 people would look like. I would be afraid of over-resourcing this thing at the start. But
Well, I think I wanna
looking
back
at
up a
this
little
thing into the future.
It's not, it's, that struck me in the report. And I think you remember I made some remarks about it at our last meeting.
Correct.
It's not only those then, it's the larger crime picture. If it's only 0.3%, well, why would you need anything, right? Things are happening, we need to solve them, and I appreciated the remarks too of some of the staff out in the hallway that said, hey, you gotta support it up the line too, over at the county, we gotta have the prosecutors. We can't have people, you know, being arrested and then leaving because they're not being prosecuted. And I appreciate all that, but I believe that the county board is also is dedicated to these same principles. We have added a prosecutor at our own expense. The state is way behind in funding the level of help we need, but we're doing the best we can. But I think the majority of the people would like to have faster responses. The more people you have, the faster you can respond, the more work you can get done. I'm not going to question the staff of when you need the staff most. That's your judgment. But I just feel this is a time, if you want to beef up the situation, if you want to address the concerns of the community, please ask us for the right amount that you think can really make an impact, not just, well, we're going to try a little harder. I think it's time to step forward and add what you need. When we talk about the cost per thousand, what the property taxes in Green Bay are, the city portion of your tax bill is such a bargain for what people get. I mean, it amounts to, doesn't even amount to a third of your tax bill. And when you think of all the services, the police, the fire, the garbage pickup, the snow removal, the leaf pickup, the parks, everything that the city does, and I haven't covered 1/10 of it. If it goes up $1 or $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 on a $100,000 house, I'm willing to pay it, and I think the majority of the citizens are. To be safe, people are willing to pay it. I don't think people are that concerned about the cost. They're interested in stronger results. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think based on the study, it shows that we definitely have issues that we need to address. And I think off the top with this four-member unit, we'll get a better picture of what actually is going on out there, because they'll be working on it on a full-time basis, full-time position. There's always opportunity to add once we find out more of what we have. Those measurements of gang-related activity and the breakdown of those 4 categories that I presented, we'll get a clearer picture of actually what those are. If we need more, that's the time we come back and look at a review with you folks on, okay, this is what we have after a year solid of working full-time on these gang issues. We may find out that it's spot on with what we have, or we may find out that we do need more.
I think the focusing on the gang issue and the incident that occurred, really, the report you brought forward opened our eyes to all the crime that's going on. And what % of the crime are we solving? I think it's a fairly high number, but you want to solve more of them, you want to catch more of them, it's a matter of numbers. Everything's a matter of numbers.
Right, I think you're talking.
I don't think we're
generalities.
over-policed. I think I don't know what adequate means, but the more policing you have, the more presence you have in the neighborhoods. There can be more presence in the neighborhoods. The more staff you have working the neighborhoods, working you know, I know you work in concert with the drug task force, and you all work together. All the officers are gonna be working with anybody who's even works strictly on the gang activities. But let's just talk about, okay, some gang activity, but could we use some more people to put more efforts into the neighborhoods? Even in a higher rent district like Mr. Sladek's, I think he's expressed that he would like to see more police presence. I'm not putting words in your mouth, am I?
Yeah, you might be, I don't think I
Okay.
said that.
Well, something to that effect, I remember at one time. This is about a year or so. But I know I would like to see them. When you see a police car, you think twice. I always look at my speedometer right away. It puts a consciousness, and the more that's in these neighborhoods, insight, I think the less people say Green Bay is an easy place to come and sell our drugs, do our crimes, whatever it is we're gonna do. So I'm just here beside the emphasis. We're budgeting, we're gonna be budgeting very soon. So this is a general discussion, maybe it's a little outside the issue here. But it's not just, I'm not just talking about the gang-related crime. I'm talking about all the crime that's there. What can we do to catch a higher percent of the people that are doing the crimes? I, as an alderman, get a lot of calls. I know that the drug task force, they have to triage, basically. They are not following up every call. They get as much information as they can about something. If they see some of the license plate numbers or some that are also appear in other places that they're watching, they become more interested in it. There's only so much they can do with the manpower they have. And that's true in everything. And I just am putting my hand out as a representative of the 9th District that I am willing to give you the manpower you feel you need to have a safe city, not just an adequate one, a really safe one. I want more emphasis put on that. I think without doubt that it's the most important thing with maintaining our neighborhoods. Mr. Nicholson got short with me at our last meeting because I was trying to give an anecdotal reason. I've had, just in the past 6 months, I've had in my own neighborhood, one person move out and one that's thinking of moving out and had approached me. People that have nice houses, that have been long-term residents, because they feel like, well, the area is becoming more transient. Maybe it's just to get out while the getting's good. The police force themselves don't want to live in the city. They want to live out in the suburbs. What for? Because it's a better lifestyle, isn't it? I want Green Bay to be as safe a place where people really feel comfortable and say, hey, I don't feel bad about living in this neighborhood. I'm close to the school, I'm close to the community policing, I'm close to all the things that make me a happy citizen. But I'm concerned that some of our neighborhoods are going to turn into totally transient neighborhoods. And I think here is where we walk in and say, we're going to stop the urban flight. We're going to do what we can to police these areas to the point where the criminals don't feel comfortable. We got less problems, people feel safer, people are happier where they live, don't think about moving. I had some person today told me the exact same thing. I was almost going to be late for the meeting here tonight because the guy was stopping me about what was going on in this neighborhood. And he said, I have to tell you, and he's a voter, and he says, first I have to tell you, we're building a house outside of Green Bay. And we like our house, we've been there a long time, but the neighborhood isn't what it used to be. That's what I was told 1/2 hour before this meeting started. That's on top of the 2 others that I talked to you about. That was said to me tonight by coincidence on my way to this meeting tonight. I said, I've got to get going. I told him I'd go take a look at the house he was talking about. And I'm just being anecdotal here, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. And I think that the stronger our police force is, the less likely we're gonna have the urban flight. And I'm thinking, what's gonna happen to the house that these people are trying to sell? Who's gonna move into it? Is the neighborhood gonna go down, or are we gonna have a nice, solid citizen there? People like to be in the nice neighborhoods. They don't like to be in the non-neighborhoods. We're doing other things with the community development block grants. With this year, the council put $1.5 million into acquisition and rehabbing of older properties. Properties that maybe they're not condemnable, but they're not desirable. And I want to continue those things. But I think in the short term, the only thing we have between us and the criminals is the police force. So I'm just saying, ask for what you think you need. I'm willing to listen. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think the report reflects, at this time, what we need. Again, you're right on with your comment that if you're talking crimes in general, I wasn't prepared, didn't prepare any statistics or numbers for that kind of thing. Purely focused on what the agenda item was.
I
last
appreciate
month,
that.
On the gang issue.
Well, you got some time. You heard what we're saying, and I'll let the other gentlemen, if they want to contradict what I've said, I'll step back and shut my mouth. But the budget time is coming. I want you to look at the whole big picture here and come before us what you think you need. And really, it was your report on the gangs that brought out the rest.
Right, I think.
Yeah, I really thought it was a higher percent.
Yeah, what you saw there is the things that we've documented to this point. And I really think to address what we know is out there, what we have in the fore is a good place to start. Certainly, by putting these four into that duty of gang enforcement, we're going to see a rise in those numbers. That's just going to be the natural occurrence because these folks are going to be focusing on that. I think a review over time of what we actually see with full-time officers looking at this problem will give us a better picture of what adjustments might need to be made down the line. But currently, I think that this four is probably where we need to be.
Mr. Nicholson, Mr. Sladek?
Well, I'll take a recommendation from the police department because they're the individuals that are on the street 24 hours a day. The experience of years as a police officer in the city of Green Bay, I'm going to take the recommendation. I'm not going to say you need more unless they ask for more. Like I said, they're the experts. They're the individuals that are dealing with this 24 hours a day. So I'm going to take their recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sladek?
Yeah, I just want to underscore something you said earlier, Mr. Chairman, and that is this really is a budget item. And we're a couple months away from budget discussions now. So I'm hoping that the leadership of the department is hearing that there's an interest on the part of, committee members to invest in reduction of the gang problems. But at the same time, come forward at budget time with what you think is the best thing to do. And that's really what we're looking for. So, I mean, if spending $400,000 additional should be done this way on a gang task force, and Chief, I'm looking for you to indicate that's where you put the priorities, that's fine. But if that's not the first place that you'd spend the additional money, then have your budget proposal reflect that. And we'll do our best to support your budget proposal.
And that was part of the discussion on this issue was, is this something we put in our budget? Or based on the request, the initial request, is this something that you folks are going to work on?
What do you mean work on?
Is this a budget item that?
You want it outside of your own budget? Because
Well, that was a question.
Are there some orders that you can't go above a certain level or something?
Yeah, that was ultimately the question because it came from this committee, the request to look at this issue.
I guess that's up to the chief.
Well, I think we're,
He'll give a
if
recommendation.
I
we'll take
if I
it.
read my colleagues here, we're going to approve this request. But in our discussion here, we've told you what some of our feelings are. And, you know, when the men out in the hallway, when I said, what do you really need? 20, 24? They said, could you find us 12? Could you afford that? Could you get that through? Well, the mayor approved 12. I said, the mayor isn't the one that approves it, it's the city council. And I believe the majority of the city council, if you make the case for it, we're willing to support it. At least I know I am. I'm going to speak for myself directly. I represent an older area of the city of Green Bay. And I'm concerned. I see my neighborhoods, I see people moving out. When people buy another house and don't even have their house sold yet, because they think they want to make it as nice as possible, because the person said directly to me, we just felt the neighborhood is starting to go down, the type of people that are in the neighborhoods have changed. We just figured we want to move farther west. And here they are, good, solid citizens, no longer going to be there. Now, it's such a nice house, I'm assuming some young couple or something are gonna come there, and solid citizens are gonna, it isn't gonna become a rental unit, I don't believe. But how soon before that person's gonna move if they sense the same thing? How soon are the property values gonna go down? Are people gonna say, let's get out while the getting's good? So I think you need more staffing if you want to have better results. What's our percentage of conviction on the crime? Have you ever put that together? What's our of the crimes that occur, what percent are we solving right now?
Yeah, that's done on a yearly basis.
And what is it more or less at this point in time?
I don't want to give you a number because I don't want to misspeak to what that number is.
Well, just a ballpark, we're not gonna nail you to the cross here. Okay, you might want to bring that back, because again, it's numbers that improve results. Everything is results. Manpower produces results. And could you bring that back to our next meeting?
Sure.
If possible. What is our effective arrest rate on crimes, solving of crimes? And it's not here to criticize. I'm not here to criticize a thing. I think the people out there are dedicated as can be. But what is it, and what manpower could we use to improve on that? Because I think in the end, that's what's going to save our communities. Okay. Anything else from the committee?
What kind of motion are you looking for?
To approve the request?
Motion to approve.
I'm not sure I understand what that motion is.
Well, to hire 4 people.
I think it's a budget item, we should deal with it at budget time.
Well, this isn't going to get started right away anyway. We're 4 months off of the first of the year. We're 2 months off of budgeting, so.
But as I raised in my earlier discussion, I don't know if.
Okay, let's approve it and move it to, and refer it to the budget.
That was
If
my
you feel better with
understanding.
that.
Yeah, I refer it to the budget discussion. I'll make that motion to refer this matter to the budget discussion for the police department's budget.
I know, I feel it has to be stronger than that. That's, we're just kicking it down the road. We're gonna talk about it again? And to me, there's nothing to talk about. The only thing to talk about is, do we want more than
Well,
this?
Mr. Chairman, I made a motion to approve the recommendation from Lieutenant Allen.
To hire 4.
Absolutely. And at budget time, that'll be presented in the budget, correct?
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
But that's when we'd approve it at budget time. We can't approve it now.
Yeah, well, the budget determines everything in the end. They could reduce the number of staff, and my colleagues thought that we should do with 10 less. I mean, they have to deal with what we give them. And we've heard their recommendation that to address the gang task force idea, they need at least 4 people. Am I interpreting you correctly?
Yes. It's my motion.
Okay, and moved by
Nicholson?
Nicholson to approve the request for 4 new people for a gang task force and to refer it to the budget for funding for next year. Can you second that?
No.
Well, I'll second it. Any
I
further
have a
discussion? Okay, go ahead.
I have a question for our new chief. Do you feel like you've been brought up to speed enough on this matter to stand behind this recommendation?
No, the answer would be no, and because of some of the comments you made this evening, but because what you're talking about is wanting to improve the neighborhoods. And we really need to take a closer look at what would improve those neighborhoods. What's the end result you want? It may be more traffic officers, it may be more of addressing transients, it may be more about truancy, it may not just be gangs. So you may be directing, put it all in one location. Well, in fact, we might be able to take a look at this and come back with 4 people that are in 4 different locations that would have a better long-term end impact. Because at this point, this report doesn't really tell you, what do you want this to look like 1 year from now if you gave us the money, starting in 2 months? And I think some of what Guy said is people move out for a variety of reasons. It may not be gangs. It may be traffic, it may be truancy, it may be transients, it may be the neighborhood's not kept up. And so I think we need to, and I think it can be done by budget time, come to you with a proposal, and it may end up being exactly what you've suggested, 4 gang officers. But it may be a combination of it. We may look at it and say, you know, we'd really be better to have 2 more detectives that follow up and focus on every gang member to make sure that they're prosecuted to the fullest extent that we can, versus having a gang unit that's more collecting of data, and maybe 2 traffic people may be more important to us. So I think we need to look at this broader, because some of what was said tonight is much broader than just gangs.
I understand.
Okay.
But just if I can
I think I
just
still
keep
have
you a
to-
second, go ahead, get more questions.
And based on that, I think it's premature for us to approve the recommendation. I think we owe it to the new department leadership to assess what's happening and to come back at budget time and propose if we should spend more money, where should we spend it? So I can't support the motion.
Well, I'm going to dig back at you, Chief, for a second, not combatively, but you say maybe it's traffic. It's interesting that was one of the first things you said, because the chief who said the committee's meddling, left because he was meddling, the committee members were meddling with him. I tell you, it's real meddling when you offer people more help. I tell you, that's real meddling. But anyway, the subject of traffic came up. As long as we're discussing this general thing, the subject of traffic came up. We had a traffic division in the past. Alderman could get an action request, call the lieutenant, whoever was in charge of the traffic, and usually you got a pretty good response within a reasonable amount of time, and it was done. Well, some of the aldermen were complaining that they weren't getting these results anymore. Well, then we learned that, well, we got to keep all these traffic people flexible to do other things. So the 4 people we had dedicated to it were doing some other things. Well, obviously, if you spend more time on other things, you're spending less time on that. And guess what? It came out right in the numbers of citations. We go back and check it because we got a fairly clever group of people up here. And we look at it, and sure enough, there's less on traffic, there's less traffic citations. Not that we give people quotas or anything, it's just a matter of what I said earlier. The more time you put at something, the more results you get in it. And so, we at that time were saying, at least I did, some people wanted 4 people dedicated strictly to traffic. I said, okay, you want to be flexible? Well, then maybe you need 6 people, add 2 more, and they'll do the equivalency of what the 4 officers are doing before, and you'll still have flexibility of 6 officers. I didn't want to fight the idea of, if the chief wanted more flexibility with his officers, I wasn't particularly going to fight that. But that didn't mean I wanted less on traffic. Traffic is a compartment of the police department. It's not, maybe it's, I don't want to say one thing's more important than another, but of course we all want to catch a murderer rather than a speeder, you know? But we have different departments within the police department. So, what you need is what you need. Now, we asked about the task force. It was a great report. I thoroughly enjoyed going through it. I was surprised about a lot of things. It gave me a good overview. And that's why I'm asking for follow-up. Well, what percent do we how good are we doing? Are we getting 90% of the people that commit crimes? Or is it 30%? We'd like to get 40% or 50%. It all comes down to manpower again. And between now and budget time, if you can assess that, you're not exactly a newcomer to Green Bay. It shouldn't take you long to get up to speed. And, from the mouths of the babes in the hallway that were not, they were rank and file, I think officers even, up there, they felt there was more need. I anecdotally feel there's more need. And yes, you're right, well, why do people move out? They move out for all different reasons. But I'm telling you, safety is one of them. And they don't like the quality of the people moving into the neighborhoods because they feel those are the people doing the crimes. And they don't feel safer on it. They don't want to walk the streets. They just soon go to a neighborhood where they can walk around the block and there's a homeowner at every place and they feel safe about it. Walking around now, who are the people? We want to work on other things. At least I am in favor of all the things you talked about that you do to have a safer, to have a better community. But we're talking about the police. And so that portion of to keep the city a better place, that's what I want to do to emphasize. Go ahead, Andy.
Chief, got a question for you, Chief. Did you read Lieutenant Allen's report?
Yes.
Okay. And you've been following what has been going on in the city of Green Bay for about 2.5 years that's related to gang activity.
Well, I don't know that I could say for the last 2.5 years that I've been watching it. I was back in Connecticut all of that time.
Okay. Well, I suggest, Lieutenant, could you brief the chief on what's been going on for the last 2.5 years of gang activity? You know what I mean? The apartment that was burned down, the shootings, the drug dealings.
We talk in generality about those things.
Yeah, the hot issues that have been on TV for the last 2.5 years that were gang activity, related to gang activity. So I guess you're gonna have to just advise the chief that if you read the report, great. And then just basically there's been some issues, some violent issues in the last 2.5 years. And we're trying to address it. So that's all we're trying to do is just support the police department here. But if there's other issues at budget time, please bring it forward. Love to hear it.
I tell you, in my 40 years in government, I usually am not in the position of asking to spend more money. And I have really never been in a position where, department heads don't want things, don't want help, don't want this. I find it, so I always feel, well, there's a force above them that's putting the lid on. So I point the finger at the administration. I felt it was that way with our last chief. I felt he was between a rock and a hard place. They wanted to keep budgets at a certain level and do as good as you can within that. And I know that they tried their very best and did their very best. But here we are, offering to make your job easier, better, and, we're meddling, really. I don't know, most police chiefs would love to have that kind of meddling. Okay, I'm repeating myself, so I'm gonna shut up now.
Mr. Chairman, we have a motion on the floor.
Okay, the motion is to approve the request for 4 people for a drug task force and to refer it to our budget committee meeting for financing.
Gang task force.
Huh?
Gang.
What did I say, drug?
Drug.
Gang task force. Okay, excuse me, to approve the request for 4 gang force specialists in our police department and to refer it to our budget period for final decision. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries to vote. Thank you very much. Item number 7, request of Fire Chief Dave Liddon to review information of possible purchase of a fireboat. Oh, Chief?
Good evening, Alderman Zima. I don't know if the full committee had a chance to review my email that I sent to you, so I won't go into a lot of, I can go into the detail again if you'd like me to. Approximately 3 months ago, some of our industrial partners that we work with on a regular basis in the area of our hazardous materials team, we train with them quite frequently, approached us about our ability to respond on the water and to deploy boom to contain a potential spill if there was to ever one to occur. And through experience and through trial and error, we informed them that our current capabilities would not allow that to happen with our current boat. And so we started discussions, or they started discussions with us about what we would need in order to be able to do that, and to also to be able to apply foam and some of the other things that we need on the rivers and on the bay. And so through that discussion, it was a local discussion here with the plant managers here locally, and that evolved over the 3 months into discussions with corporate headquarters in Findlay, Ohio, with Marathon and with US Ventures and some of the other entities. And the net result was that we identified what we need from a city's perspective to protect our citizens and those folks that are boating on the rivers and those that are out in the bay, and to protect all of the port, essentially, and the marinas and the folks that use the waterways. So we identified a boat that would give us those capabilities. That was a demo boat that's made here in Wisconsin. We looked at other manufacturers in the country that manufacture fireboats. We found a demo that would apply, that would fit perfectly for us. They actually brought it down here for us to look at and to essentially demo in the water. Net result is the companies came back. They originally were offering the purchase price of the boat with financing is $315,000, and they originally came back and offered to pay $150,000 of that. Through our discussions with them and through our prodding and our pushing and pushback, they eventually settled on financing $225,000 of the $315,000, leaving $90,000 for the city to fund. That $90,000 could be funded in two separate ways. It could be funded through bonding at the end of a quote balloon payment in 2019, or I would probably prefer, but it would be the committee's and the council's prerogative to just fund $18,000 a year in my operating budget over a period of 5 years. I detailed all the problems that we have with our current boat, and as we speak right now, the boat is out of the water, out of service again. We had some incidents over the weekend while I was on vacation, and the boat was rendered inoperable, so it's at the shop and being looked at once again. And I can't stress enough of the amount of issues that we have out on the water, the hazards that we have along the waterways and out on the bay itself. And we feel that this public-private partnership will be a good one for the city. What do the companies get out of this? Well, they get our hazmat team, they get our trained personnel to respond out there, which they would get anyway. If they call 911, we're going to respond to it because we're obligated to do so. And they get those folks on an ongoing basis. Those folks are trained. We keep 18 members on that team. They are trained through our normal process. And so they have the peace of mind, so to speak, the insurance policy that if they have an incident, and that should they have a spill on a river or out on the bay, where their terminals are located, their fines and their penalties and their cleanup can be in the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. So their insurance policy is the fact that we have trained people, we have boat captains that are stationed in our close-in stations here into the city. We can deploy, we can be on the water in 5 minutes, and we can start deploying this boom, and we can actually apply a foam blanket over a spill in order to prevent any ignitions. So that's why they're in. That's why they want to put the money towards this. They previously had a contractor out of Milwaukee who promised them that they could be here within the required 1 hour. That has shown and been proven to not be a fact. They come out of Milwaukee, as soon as they can get up here, it's 5 to 6 hours. And I can't tell you the environmental damage and things that can go on in that period of time if you have a major leak. So I'm asking the committee to approve the purchase of this boat. and the portion that we would be putting in would be the $90,000. Now, the existing boat, there is no market for it in this area. It's a jet boat, as I detailed in the memo there. It is not really conducive to operating on our waterways here because of all of the sediment and things that are in the river and out on the bay. The jets constantly are clogging up. We feel that there may be a market for it on the East Coast or down in Florida. I guess there's some entertainment value in putting people up in parachutes with the jet drives, and I don't know the whole detail there, but the best that anybody could give us any kind of an idea of what that boat might be worth would be between $5,000 and $20,000. So that's just a really a guess as well. So I'm not quite sure what the market on the trade-in or the sale of that boat would be, the existing boat, but that's our best guess.
Well, you could look at similar boats and put it on Craigslist and see what you do.
That's essentially what we would be doing.
What would be the cost of training for our staff?
Well, the training will be included in the purchase price, so they'll come down and train our staff, the initial training on that. But the training itself is on an ongoing basis, and it's done with people who are on duty, so we don't pay any overtime for people to come in to do that. It's part of the natural course of what we do during our training program.
Okay, so we don't have to be concerned with that portion of it.
That's correct.
You said you would give us two choices of how to pay for it. You thought 5 years of $18,000 a year into your budget, and what the other was just the outright purchase.
Well, the other one would be a balloon payment in 2019 at $90,000. The company is interested in putting the boat here, and the reason for that is that they cut the price down. It's a demo boat, number one, but number two, they want the boat here because
Will they buy the whole thing and take $18,000 a year from us to pay for it?
the company is, what's going to happen, the way it's structured is that Marathon Oil and US Ventures will pay $90,000 up front, and the boat will be delivered to us, and then the two companies will pay $45,000 for the following 3 years, and then in the 5th year, the $90,000 payment would be due from the city. Or we can pay $18,000 a year as we go along the way for the 5 years and accomplish the same thing.
Would we get a little reduction for that, paying it up front?
I could certainly push them a little harder, but we've worked the company pretty hard. And we've worked our partners.
We don't have to do any borrowing then, that's built into it?
Yeah, we think that the boat, I detailed in my memo that I think the lifespan of the boat will be 15 years. That's probably on the low end. I like to underpromise rather than over. It's probably more in the 20-year range, but if you look at an amortization of it over a 15-year period, let's just say the $90,000 costs the city $6,000 a year, which in my estimation is a great, it's a great hazard insurance, if you will, for our citizens and for people out on the waterways and for our businesses. And if that port gets shut down, the economic impact here to the city is very substantial.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
No questions.
What's your pleasure then?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the department going ahead with the purchase and the joint effort with the industrials. Trying to think about the way of doing the 90 grand now.
Well, it's 90 grand at the end, isn't it?
We
You want a
can
balloon
do
payment?
either one of the two ways. We can do it 18,000 for the next
It's easier to
5
pay
years.
18,000 a year.
I would direct the department to plan on budgeting to cover this in 5 consecutive years rather than bonding.
Well, we don't have to bond, it's just that, do you want to have a $90,000 bill come due in 5 years, or do you want to pay 18,000 a year? Is it, do I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
So we don't have to bond for anything. In fact, if we want to pay nothing for the next 5 years, but we have to sign a contract that says we got to pay it in the end of 5 years.
I'm sorry, I felt the way the options were described was we could either budget $18,000 for each of 5 years.
That's correct.
Or prior to the time that the bill comes due in 2019, we could bond for $90,000.
Or we'd have to pull $90,000 from somewhere, whether it's bonding or whether it's from money that we find. Either way.
That's pretty
it's-
speculative, so if
that's-
we don't commit to $18,000 a year, we best plan that it's gonna be bonded.
Yeah, I can show it in our new equipment as a line item for the next 5 years. You'll see it there, and at the 6th year, you'll see it drop off.
Mhm.
Do we have problems with our exceeding our limits to the state levy limits, or? I don't know, do we want to save $18,000 a year now and have to pay for it later, or do we have any problems now?
Each year will be lower levy limit, so 18,000 will not put us over.
We've been substantially under each year. What's your pleasure, then, Mr. Sladek?
My motion is to direct the department to go ahead with the purchase and to prepare their budget, presuming it's going to be an additional $18,000 a year for the next 5 years.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 8 is a request to the city treasurer to review and approve a resolution updating financial institutions the city does business with.
In your packet, you should have a copy of the resolution. It's really taking one that has been in place for many years and just updating, changing names, updating the bank names. The one in particular we have added was Community First Credit Union. We have gone forward and we have used this credit union for the 2015 bonding money. We called around and they gave us the best rate, best return, interest rate for putting our bonding money in. So we have added Community First Credit Union on this list. And there are a couple other banks like BMO, Paris, it used to say MNI, we have updated that name. Pioneer Credit Union, we have updated to Capital Credit Union. Citizen, we've updated to First Merit. Wisconsin Bank and Trust, used to be Heartland, we've updated. So really, we just updated the information, and we have added First Community Credit Union to this resolution.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Diana, I was just surprised when I saw this at how many banks are included. There's about 25 banks here. You know, can you give me some idea why we do business with that many banks?
We currently are not doing banks activity with all these banks. These are ones that have been on the list in the past. We currently, I have a list. I think we currently probably have money at about 13 banks. Mostly it's so allocation of our kind of diversity within your portfolio, so you don't have all your money in one bank in case one bank would go under.
Okay.
And then we'll move our money around also based on the rates, if we have a better return at one bank versus another. Each year when we have bonding money, we do open a new account to hold the bonding money in so that we know that we can track it and watch to make sure that we've spent it down within the 2-year time limit. So sometimes we'll open an account. So actually, these are not all current banks that we have.
And the
Money
ones that
in.
are on the list that are not currently doing business with us are basically there as a contingency?
There as a contingency, it would allow us to go back and call them and look around, search around and look for the best interest rate on to put money in for an investment.
Okay, thank you. I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the request of the city treasurer to review and approve the resolution updating financial institutions the city does business with. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 9 is report by the finance director.
I have no additional information.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to receive and place on file the report of the financial director. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Alderman Nicholson, second by Alderman Slotnick to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
I have a question for you, gentlemen. Can we move up 9 right away? They have their attorney.